December 2020.
It's a pleasure to welcome Juliet Bentley to present to us tonight. She is an Adobe Education Leader and also the Adobe Master Teacher for the Asia Pacific region. She's an English and Religious Studies teacher at Mount St Michael's College in Brisbane. Welcome, Juliet. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be sharing some of the work that I have been doing with my students. And let me just start by bringing up my... I don't want that one. This is what I had fun with last time. I'm going to go into where I began, because obviously I was in a situation where I didn't have any technological skills at all. I'm an English teacher, I'm an RE teacher, I was a drama teacher, and social sciences. And what happened was I went along to professional development with friends who were working in the digital area. And that's when I met Tim, who was really quite inspiring. And I also got to meet Ben Forter at that time. And I saw so much potential. So I began, like most other people, I think, I began with the idea of using these tools for me to create more interesting resources for my students. However, it wasn't all that long before I realized that I could actually get more from my students if I handed the tools over to them. But more recently, I introduced Adobe Spark to one of our science teachers who runs with another colleague the environment group. And this group is a very time-poor group. They only get to meet once every fortnight for approximately half an hour. And so I talked to her about using Adobe Spark Post particularly, so that she could make the most of the time she had. And I did a very brief interview with her, and I'd love, Tim, if you wouldn't mind sharing that would be fantastic.
It's about to come up now, Juliet.
Lovely. 2, 1.
My environment group students wanted to make some posters to inform our student body about different things that they could do. So I was recommended to try using Adobe Spark to make the posters. So I had a quick play around with it. I'd never heard of it before. A quick trial the night before our environment group meeting and found it really straightforward. I was able to make something that I was happy with in a relatively short space of time, which was quite important because our environment group meetings happen at lunchtime, so we only had 20 minutes to try and make these posters. So then in our meeting the next day, we had a group of students from grade 7 to grade 12. Some of them had used it before and others were like me and were new. But they all found it really straightforward, quite intuitive. I didn't give them any instructions on how to use it other than look at Adobe Spark and make a poster, please. And they came up with some great results.
And you're thinking about making a video too now, aren't you?
Yes, so we're going to try and make a little video on the projects that we've done across the last 2 years.
And that'll be fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that, Fiona.
No
Take
problem.
care. Bye.
Thanks.
One of the things, let me go back to sharing my screen again. One of the wonderful things about working in a school, well, I'm working in a Catholic school, but a Catholic school that has a very strong social justice ethos, and we're very much attentive to making sure our students are participants, not passengers in the world. And so the idea of giving Fiona the opportunity to use the Adobe Spark then led to the conversation around maybe using Adobe Rush to make a video to curate the last 2 years. And that's actually what she's going to be doing very shortly. Oops, let's go past that. That was that. The other thing that I just wanted to show you were some of the posters, because they started off with the posters that we are very familiar with. Many of us have had this situation. So they went from the cut and paste, and in the space of 20 minutes ended up with a lot of far more professional looking posters, some very good ideas. I mean, the idea of creating cotton or recyclable makeup wipes, for example, was something I hadn't even thought of. They looked at compost bins and composting, and as I said, we are very attentive to the Sustainable Development Goals, so everything ties in quite beautifully. Toothbrushes, and down to recyclable cutlery, which we basically should just be bringing in from our kitchens. But getting students to do something proactive, something quick, and it takes them from just being academic activists to actually practical ones advocating for change. Teachers tend to use Adobe Spark for, as I said, the teaching resources, and I tended to use them as conversation starters or opportunities to get students to support one another in peer editing, reminding them in a more dynamic way how to talk and how to share. I'm creating resources that can then be used in a range of different ways. And more or less trying to hook their attention through graphics as much as drawing upon their visual literacy. In this example, which you can actually find on the Education Exchange, we talked about using post to identify themes in novels. And because they are experts in visual literacy, it gives them that sort of tool to play with and show their understanding. And some students are better at doing it visually than they are at putting it into a paragraph. So in order to give students the opportunity to show their understanding, it does a range of different things. I also used Adobe Spark Video as a template. So I just want to show you this. This was I'm not going to run the volume, so it's okay that there's no sound, but using the Adobe Spark as let me just find the volume. Turn the volume off. Using the Adobe Spark Video as a means to create templates. So I can show my students and guide them with dialogue, with them hearing me narrate directions, but they can also visually see what I would expect them to do in their version of this piece of work. And again, you can find this on the Adobe Education Exchange. Let me just remove that one, going back to here. The other thing that I tend to enjoy using is the Spark page. Let me just pop back for a second. There we go. Fingers crossed. Yes. So using Adobe Spark Page as a curation tool for lessons or for particular focus. So in this situation, it was looking at locations and setting for the book thief. The thing about Spark Page means you can embed YouTube videos. You can use the glides. You can ask questions. You can give directions. You can capture their attention in a way that a static PDF just doesn't. And it also gives the opportunity to tie into other areas. For example, in this situation, when I was looking at location, I also then built up a Google Earth tour project where I would identify the different locations mentioned in the novel. So it's another opportunity that you can use by being able to, by being able to access the page. Then we go into the classroom. Now, as I said, I tend to use it. I use it for my own resources and for curating my teaching, but it's far more powerful in the hands of my students. And recently we started, well, this term, my school is looking at supporting Days for Girls. And this is a charity that looks to support young women, particularly around the world, who are disadvantaged and often lack the education to know what a menstrual cycle is. It's a way of granting hope and dignity. And it's part and parcel of what we're doing at the college. And we are currently, as a Catholic college, going into Advent. And I wanted the students to make the connection between preparing for Christmas. If you're a Christian, you're going to be preparing for the Christ in Christmas. If you're not Christian, you're going to be preparing to share time with friends and family and make great memories and buy presents and celebrate life and opportunity and connection. And in this situation, I was trying to get my students to make the connection between a religious period, preparation, and preparing to serve other people. So I'm just going to show you, again, starting with the posters that they started off with, but then within less time than it took for them to create the paper and pen version, they had a much more effective, more dynamic poster to be able to use. And it wasn't just a case of using Adobe Spark Post for this. It was about giving them the opportunity to create pages. And so I'm just going to flick you through a very quick glance at one of the pages that one of the groups of 4 students came together with. And I want to draw attention particularly, I know that the topic may seem rather sensitive, but we have the whole point of Days for Girls is to stop this whole idea of the menstrual cycle being taboo and actually allowing it dignity and recognition and the opportunity to help more consider sisterhood. So what I wanted to draw attention to was the really tasteful images that the students had access to. They also used Adobe Rush to create a video. I'm not going to play the video for you, but they were able to, by uploading it to YouTube, include it into the page, and that they advocated for action and were able to share happy stories and hope-filled stories to make the connections with Advent and to provide a reflection and to understand that at the bottom there will be acknowledgement of all of the different images that they used, which teaches them about their online behavior and also acknowledging the groups that need to be acknowledged, the people who produce the photographs, etc. So that was the spark in the classroom. I am easily accessible to share. Actually, I did want to show you something else before I finish. I wanted to show you, let me get out of that. I wanted to show you the Adobe Education Exchange because you will find distance learning resources in here using Adobe Spark. I've actually, as a part of the Master Teacher project, I have 10 lessons where I'm looking at using Adobe Spark in a range of different ways. And when you cruise through this wonderful resource, you get the templates, you get the instructions, you get tutorials as to how to go about using the tools. And when you run out of ideas there, you can then go to Ben Forter and Monica Burns' book, which has lots and lots of ideas. So as an educator using Adobe Spark, I use the Adobe Spark video a lot for creating mindfulness videos for my students, and that was particularly useful during COVID. I've used the pages to curate, to create teaching resources, but my students are using them not only to show their understanding, but also to advocate for change in the world. And I am very passionate about the Sustainable Development Goals, and I've been using it in my Asia Europe Foundation project, Writing Our Way to a Better World, which is looking at giving students the opportunity to have a voice and to share their knowledge, to be more than, as I said, passengers, to be participants in the world that we're living in, and hopefully empowering them to use that voice, to be creative. And please forgive the dog, he's coming to say hello. That's probably as much as I really want to say about that. Tim, would you like me just to show the Adobe Spark writing challenges briefly?
Yeah, let's do that now. That's good. While you're getting that set up, there's a few comments here. John from Toowoomba saying, you continue to be an inspiration, Juliet. The girls at your school are most fortunate to have you there. There's a bit of encouragement for you. And Timothy Cosgrove from Toronto saying, Juliet, I am very interested in how you apply Adobe Spark in the religion program, especially for social justice issues. So you've hit a mark there, Juliet. Well done.
Lovely. Let me just quickly bring up my screen again and go back to the Spark. Here we go. The Spark writing challenges. So as you heard Tim mention before, we're now going into our 3rd week of the challenge. It ends, I think, on the beginning of December. And we have been talking to Jackie French, and we spoke to Brett Salakis, and tomorrow we'll be speaking to Shelley Lloyd. And I know that in England, at the UK and in America, they've also been running the same live streams, but with obviously different people speaking. But I just want to show you what it is about. And as I'm sure Tim will put in the chat, there is a page that you can go to get more information. Dominic Trenor, or DigiDom, has given great little videos to introduce what the challenge is and how to go about it. When you watch the live stream, we actually show you how to go about uploading into Adobe Spark. But these are the questions we look at. And as you can see, it has check out the Spark page. It gives you a short video. It gives you 4 questions. And the students can respond to that. And the more they practice their writing skills and the more joy they have in it, the better they're going to get. And it's like any other sort of skill. You need to practice. And I think it's really important also that students see us have moments of productive failure as well. So they can see that when things don't work out very well, you work on and you keep developing and refining and show resilience. So can veganism change the world? That's got some fantastic questions in there. And should there be monarchies? Should international flights be banned? Should homework be replaced by acts of kindness? And I really do believe that that's a very important question that we should answer. Should smoking be advertised on social media, which we've already discussed? But the one that we're looking at tomorrow, Tim, is about transport. We're going to be looking at how can drivers be convinced to use public transport. And I think that that's going to be an interesting way to spend a Thursday afternoon. But that's pretty much it from me.
Thank you very much, Julie. At 5 o'clock tomorrow, Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, 4 o'clock for Queensland. And you can work it out for the rest of your regions around the world if you want to join us live tomorrow. Otherwise, the recording will be available for you on the Adobe for Education YouTube channel. Juliet, thank you so much for your contribution, and lots of praise for you in the chats there. We're going to finish off this chapter now. In the next chapter, we're going to do a recap of the recent Adobe Max event.